This is the first vaccine authorized in Canada for the prevention of COVID-19 in children and marks a significant milestone in Canada's fight against the pandemic.
In a world first, Canada approves a COVID vaccine for youth under the age of 16.
The PNE will do what it's always done, which is we will get back up and we'll fight.
The beloved fair at the PNE is cancelled again this year. Just ahead, how the loss will impact staff jobs, exhibitors, and neighboring businesses.
Several lower mainland communities rocked by gun violence. Just ahead, police and politicians say they're raising their response, but one former police chief says they're failing to deliver.
You are the police, you are trained investigators. Look at different investigative techniques to deal with it.
The daily case numbers in BC are slowly coming down. There are 572 new cases of COVID-19 across the province tonight. No new deaths have been reported in the last day. 481 people are currently in hospital, with 161 in intensive care. More than 1.9 million doses of vaccine have now been administered in BC. A little more than 93,000 are second doses.
This is the first vaccine authorized in Canada for the prevention of COVID-19 in children and marks a significant milestone in Canada's fight against the pandemic.
It's a world first. Health Canada approving the Pfizer vaccine for youth between 12 and 15.
Data from the clinical trial showed that the vaccine's efficacy after the second dose in preventing COVID-19 in this younger age group was 100%.
As many parts of Canada are reeling from a third wave of the pandemic, Pfizer is helping to open the vaccine floodgates to the majority of Canadians. Officials say that 20% of all COVID cases in Canada were in youth under 19 years old. The trial was conducted on 2,000 American youth, with half given placebos. Among those vaccinated, there were 0 cases of COVID and 18 cases among those who had received a placebo. Canada setting the bar as the first country in the world to approve the vaccine for the age bracket.
The most commonly reported side effects were temporary and mild, like a sore arm, chills, or fever.
The previous cutoff for the Pfizer vaccine was 16 years old. Other vaccines are only approved for Canadians 18 and over.
I don't want to say really naive things like there's no risk, go and do it, because that's just not true. But when you balance all the risks, I think people are going to, converge on the realization that the vaccine is the best route. There's no question in my mind. For my kids, that's what I'm going to do.
Just like adults, Canadian kids have been riding the same pandemic waves and lockdowns for well over a year now. Furness thinks the Pfizer vaccine will help reopen a world that kids require.
If we can get kids down to the age of 12 vaccinated, we can have summer camp. We can have summer sports. We can have all sorts of things that kids actually need.
The latest numbers show that nearly 35% of Canadians have received their first dose of the vaccine. In Ottawa, Nigel Newlove, City News.
This approval means BC kids 12 and up could be leaving for summer break this school year with memories and a shot of COVID-19 vaccine.
There's lots of possibilities, including making sure we can get that done prior to end of school this year.
One of the options could be vaccine clinics at schools.
We have a lot of experience in public health at supporting immunization in schools. It's a very efficient way of doing it, but we just got the vaccine approved today.
And the approach won't be the same everywhere.
It might be better to do it when we're going into a community for dose 2 for some of the adults. So I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. Those are all of the things that we're considering.
Even with a large 12 to 17-year-old cohort, nearly 300,000 people in BC, Dr. Henry says there's enough supply coming now to handle that and second doses.
We'll be balancing it with the second doses, but 300,000 people is a week's worth of vaccine right now. So that's the good news. We just need to figure out how to do that to make sure we're maximizing the protection as soon as we possibly can.
Working toward the goal of herd immunity, she says this group is a cherry on top.
We will be able to reach a low level of transmission once we get about 75-80% of the 18 and above population immunized, and that's what we're aiming for. We'll add this in, and it's essentially a bonus.
Kids younger than 12 will likely have to wait longer.
It may not be until the end of this calendar year that we have vaccine available for some of the younger age groups, but you never know.
But if supply continues as it's supposed to, she says kids will be returning to school in the fall fully immunized with 2 doses. For City News in Victoria, I'm News 1130's Lisa Yuzda.
It's another blow, right? One of many that we've had over the last year and whatever it's been.
It's an event that signifies summer in Vancouver, but for the second year in a row, the annual fair at the PNE will not go ahead this summer due to ongoing COVID-19 restrictions. It's disappointing news for vendors who have been going to the summer fair for years and even decades.
Pretty much the last big event of the year for us, and between that and the Calgary Stampede is pretty much our year, right? But apart from what we generate for revenue and our income and stuff, it's also lots of jobs. You're buying lots of local products. You're everything, right? It's all one big wheel.
It was very disappointing. PNE's been a very long-term family member with us. We started in '67 with my dad, and it's just sad day.
Organizers made the final decision after Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry spoke Monday, saying no big celebrations will happen this summer.
What we hope with the program that we are on now, with the amount of vaccine that we have, is that we will be able to have some small outdoor events. I can say there is not likely to be big events of any sort, even outdoors, through this summer and into the fall and winter of next year.
We have been working since last summer on scalable PNE models. But the distance between what would be financially viable and what in all likelihood it will be possible is too wide.
The loss of the PNE also means the loss of thousands of much-needed jobs. And fewer visitors to the area means neighboring businesses will also be impacted.
It's a huge ripple. It's about $200 million a year in annual economic impact into our region, primarily the city. Our neighbors are our family.
Last summer, the PNE shifted gears and held a modified drive-through event where guests could enjoy shows and snacks from their vehicles.
The drive-through last year that we had was quite good. So, I mean, if that's where we got to go, then I'm not going to complain. I'll take what we can get right now, yeah.
But organizers say lower capacity in-person events are not financially viable.
It doesn't generate the revenue to offset our fixed expenses. It's not going to be something that is going to make us the revenue we need.
This year's fair closure is another blow to the already struggling PNE that needs millions of dollars in financial aid to make it through the pandemic.
What we're asking for is the $8 million to allow us to be able to climb out through the ingenuity and the resiliency that this group has shown year over year.
While no promises of provincial funding have been made, those involved with the PNE are hopeful it will find a way to survive.
We will get back up and we'll fight.
In Vancouver, Miranda Fatour, City News.
I don't think that girls should be consistently targeted or singled out due to distracting the boys.
She says her daughter has gotten the talk twice, but not her son. One Langley Township mother says she's frustrated her children's school seems to be targeting girls in the dress code. A woman who was shot in Surrey last night has now died from her injuries. It happened at a home near 96th Avenue and 160th Street at around 9 o'clock. When police arrived, they found the 20-year-old woman badly hurt. She was rushed to hospital but didn't make it. A man in his 20s was taken into custody. Investigators say they don't believe that this is connected to the ongoing gang violence in the Lower Mainland.
The man in his 20s is a person that is well known to police. He may have gang ties, and we're still working to solidify those. Our victim, our 20-year-old victim, was not known to police, and we're still trying to determine the nature of their relationship and if any.
This was the 5th shooting in the Lower Mainland since Friday.
Surrey is the latest community in the Lower Mainland shaken by gun violence in the past few days. It follows a daylight shooting at a Delta Mall on Saturday, another shooting in a Burnaby neighborhood the day after, another at a Langley Mall on Monday. Police investigators are ensuring the public they're ready to fight back.
At all times, we are ready to meet reckless violence with measured force. We're always prepared
But as police reallocate their resources during this rash of violence, former West Vancouver Police Chief Cash Heed criticizes police and politicians for using the same tactics and rhetoric and failing to stop the violence with a fresh approach.
We've got politicians that have no clue what to do and are not taking that approach, and we have police leaders that are just defaulting to the approach that they've been taking over the last 15, 20 years to try and deal with this and stem the violence.
While the recent shooting in Surrey isn't believed to be gang motivated at this time, Heed says it's still a problem that a gun was involved.
Look at the fact that we've got a firearm involved here. Why do we have such easy access to firearms? What can we do in that aspect on analysis to stem the flow of firearms coming in? Not a week down the road, not a month down the road, right now, today.
Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth says the province continues to support police investigations.
I can tell you that there have been a number of initiatives that the government has put in place over the last couple of years, particularly this last year, which will assist police greatly. One is a witness security program, and the other is the new forensic firearms laboratory that has been placed in Surrey.
Heed had Farnworth's job when Gordon Campbell was premier and believes the lack of provincial response shows the government's inadequacy to tackle this issue.
On the political side of it, I'll tell you, I've never been so disappointed in a reaction from politicians on this. Politicians, police leaders, others involved have finger pointed and say, you know that your youth, you know that your kids are involved in this activity, you know that your friends are involved in this activity. Come out and report it. We know that doesn't work.
IHIT's Frank Jang maintains that public safety is a community effort.
Just unfortunate that we don't have a crystal ball to tell us when these things happen. I'd love to have one, but we don't.
Heed says they just have to do better.
You are the police. You are trained investigators. Look at different investigative techniques to deal with it.
In Vancouver, Kier Junos, City News.
Homicide investigators say no one is currently in custody in connection with the death of Trina Hunt. Her remains were found in Hope at the end of March. And since that news broke over the weekend, people had been laying flowers outside her Port Moody home. The 48-year-old was reported missing on January the 19th by her husband. He said he came home from work and found the house empty, but says that he saw Trina that morning. Family, friends, and volunteers spent several weeks searching for her. Police say they understand that there's a lot of public interest in solving her disappearance.
We've been inundated with calls and comments from the public. We understand the impact that investigation has had on the Tri-Cities community and beyond, quite frankly. We are working extremely hard on that investigation. It's an active and ongoing investigation. And right now isn't the time for me to comment, for us to comment on that particular case. That time may be coming soon, not now.
Call police if you have any information. Conservation officers believe they have killed the cougar responsible for an attack that left a woman in hospital with serious injuries. The attack happened yesterday morning at the victim's home near Agassiz. Officers managed to locate 2 juvenile male cougars in the area, but the animals could not be relocated, and so they were both killed. The woman injured in yesterday's attack remains in hospital with injuries to her head, face, and arms, and she's now listed in stable condition.
The whole area is completely enclosed in. I'm genuinely curious how the bear was even able to get into that area.
Check out this video of a bear taking a stroll down the tracks in East Vancouver today. These shots taken by Craig McKiley, a local photographer who works in the city's film biz. He says he heard some yelling from outside his Gastown studio just east of the Main Street Loop. When he went out to check out the commotion, he found Vancouver police working to corral the misplaced animal.
Then I just happened to look down, and directly below me was a bear on the train tracks. And so obviously that's what the officers were trying to do, was move it along away from downtown. They seemed to know what they were doing, and they handled it very nicely. The bear wasn't panicked. It was just kind of having a good time, wandering around, going from one side to the other, a little bit confused, but nothing too agitated or anything like that.
The bear was also spotted out toward the PNE before making its way closer to Heatley and Powell Streets. Craig says it appears train service was halted during the rescue. The bear was successfully tranquilized by conservation officers and will likely be relocated.
How about we have conversations with our boys? I asked my son, who's in grade 12, have you ever had this conversation? And he said no.
A Langley Township mother has taken to social media after she says girls at RE Mountain Secondary, where her grade 10 daughter is enrolled, are being targeted by the school's dress code. She says in one instance, the physical education teacher told students one of the class rules was that female students' outfits are not meant to distract boys. And in her post, she says this is the second time this has come up at the school.
So when I hear that my daughter and her classmates are, the message is you're not here to pick up boys, or you're not here to dress to impress boys. I guess I kind of wonder what sort of message that's sending to my daughter and to her peers, that that perhaps that would be their intention.
When you identified that you had those concerns about the conversations happening between your school and your daughter and her classmates, what did you do at that time?
I sent an email last evening and had a conversation with the principal today.
And what sort of response have you gotten so far?
We had what I felt like was a good conversation. He admitted that, there were some concerns that I brought up, and that they will be kind of assessing the situation and maybe looking at how they are communicating to students going forward.
Do you have anything specifically that you would like to see happen in the near future?
I love this district. I love my kids' school. It's been a great place for them to learn. I just feel like this is it's kind of a blind spot. And I would really like to see conversations happen going forward about how you are communicating to students, and especially to the girls in the school.
We did reach out to the school district and were told they would be declining an interview at this time. In Vancouver, David Zura, City News. And that brings us to the end of the show. The news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. And your next edition of City News is later tonight at 11 o'clock. Thanks for watching and have a great night.